I'm amazed at is when I go to Latin America. Just the last trip I was doing a conference in Bolivia, and we had a question and answer session after we spoke about the work we were doing in Spanish. And a man from Peru raised his hand and said, "You have one of the best Bible versions around in the English. Why don't you just teach us to English and we could use the English King James Version?" And that's not an anomaly. That type of question comes up all over Latin America. People say, "Why don't you just translate from the King James?" And well, we don't believe in doing that. So
this is the McVeigh New Testament. It is the King James Bible translated into Spanish by a missionary to Central America. Now, this Bible is criticized because of that, and people don't like some of the choices that were made in this Bible in trying to be word for word translation of the King James Bible into Spanish. Now, a friend of mine just came from Thailand, and he brought me this Thai King James Bible. I don't speak Thai, but I think it's pretty cool that they have a King James Bible in their language. I also own a Biblia King James Fiel 1611, which is a Portuguese translation of the King James Bible. So the people in Brazil, they're very excited that they have a King James in their language. I also have here with me, this last one is a New Testament of the French, the King James translated into French. And what I like about this Bible is pretty interesting that in John chapter 3, verse 16, where most Bibles have eternal life in verse 15 and verse 16, where the English King James Bible uses eternal life in verse 15 and everlasting life in verse 16. So this Bible is different where it does use the word everlasting in verse 16. Here, vie sempiternelle, where verse 15 says vie éternel. So eternal and everlasting. So the Spanish Bibles, they don't make that same distinction like the King James does. So it's pretty cool that the French Bible does do that. So in Spanish, it has eternal life in verse 15 and verse 16, but the word everlasting is in the Spanish Bible. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 16, where it talks about to whom be honor and power everlasting. The Spanish Bible says honra y poder sempiterno. So the word sempiterno is everlasting in Spanish. And this Christmas season that just passed, we've actually been singing that word. So in the hymn, "O Little Town of Bethlehem," where the verse or the hymn reads in English, "Yet in the dark street shineth the everlasting light." In Spanish, the Spanish version reads, "Pues en tus campos brilla hoy la sempiterna luz."